Welcome back, friends. In the previous part, we created this default layout and we managed to render the contents of this default layout on the browser like this. So in this particular part, we will be focusing on creating the partials and also moving these routes to a different file altogether so that our app.js remains clean as much as possible. The only difference that you might have noticed is that I'm using a port variable here, and that is getting displayed here as well in the console log dynamically. And this variable is defined in the configuration file which we created a couple of videos back. So I defined a variable here and assigned this a value. So this process.env object has got a property name port, so which will be defined if you run this code on a live server, or otherwise if this line of code is not defined, then I am telling the app to use port number 3000, and currently as you can see it's running on port 3000 here. Okay, so this is where we left off. So now let's work on defining this default.handlebar file. Okay, so if you go on the top, from the doc type till the head, I want to remove this section and create and store this in a separate file, partial file under the default folder. I'll create a new handlebar file here and I'll name it header. Okay, nope, don't add to get. So I'll cut it from here, paste it in the header.handlebar files. But right now, if you save and reload your browser, you will notice that this navigation bar will disappear and you don't have the style sheets as well. Okay, so bring it back. How do we do that? So in handlebars, you have to use this syntax wherein you have to start and end two curly braces. Inside this curly braces, you have to put a greater than sign, and then the name of your partial. So a partial is in the default folder. By default, handlebar will look inside this partials folder unless you change the path in the configuration. So inside this partials, I have a default folder, and inside the default, I have a file named as header.handlebars. I don't have to put in the extension. The name is simply write default slash handle header. Okay, so once I do that, save the changes, go back to the browser, refresh it, everything is back in place. Okay, pretty neat, huh? Also, I want to remove this navbar from here. So I'll go to default, create another file. I'll name it top navigation and save it, paste it here, copy this code from here, paste it here, and then rename it as default top navigation. Okay, let's go back, nothing changes. Great. Then we have, let me close this header file. Then we have this body. Okay, I'm gonna copy this entire row from here. I'll leave the container in the main layout because whatever I want to show on the page should be centered. So this container is a class that is defined in the Bootstrap framework, and it actually centers everything on the page. Okay, so let me copy this from here, cut it and paste it in the index file. Okay, like that. Alright, let me just check the sound settings. I hope the recording is okay, should be good. So now if we just save and go back to the browser, you won't see any content here. Okay, everything will be gone except for the footer and the top header. So we want to show the content, then we have to use a body tag here from handlebars, of course, but this time you have to use three curly braces, okay? And within those three curly braces, you have to use the body uh, tag. So once you do that and refresh the page, you'll get the content back. And this is getting rendered from the from the template here, or the file here, the index file here. And this is because we are sending this file in the render view uh, when the user is accessing this route. So we are telling to render this view which is present inside this default slash index file. Okay. Then let's also remove this footer from here and create a new handlebar file here. I'll say footer and paste it there. Okay, go back, copy the top navigation, paste it here, and replace this with footer. Okay, and inside the footer, let me just update the year. It should be 19. Okay, and go back, refresh. Everything looks good. Great. So we have segregated our default layout into multiple different smaller files, which will be easier to manage. Okay, and that is all about partials. So you can create as many partials as you want and keep them in this folder. We will do the similar we will take the similar approach while we are working on the backend in the admin panel, I mean. Okay, for the time being I can close this and the index file as well, and then I will create a new file inside the routes. In fact, I'll create a couple of directories, one for the default and the other one for the admin. Okay, so inside this default I will have a new file known as JavaScript default routes. Okay, so all the default routes which are responsible on this front end page will be stored in this default routes.js file. Okay, so I'm gonna cut it from here and paste it there, and of course I need to have express. Okay, so I'll have express require express. Okay, then I'll create a router object from this express dot router. Okay, so this helps me to create different routes. Okay, and I'll remove this app. I'll remove the app with router, so the syntax will remain the same, but if I go back to the browser, the route this route is not in use currently. Okay, I will get the same error. We have to use it in the app.js file, so I have to first import that file. I'll say default routes and require dot routes slash default routes. Okay. Or let's remove it, put it here. Okay, on the root. I don't want that. And oops, not the index file but the route. Okay, and remove these folders. I don't need it actually, because in this routes I'll have only two files. One is default routes and the other one is the admin routes, so I think I'm good. And the path is automatically updated by my IDE here. Now we have to use it, app.use. So anything that has a // should go to my default routes. Okay, and later we will have this like admin, so it will go to admin routes, something like that. Okay, save it, go back to your, it says app crashed. Let's check. Router.use. Okay, got an object. Let me check that here. It should be already get. I'm sorry. So we are sending a get request here. Okay, not use. My bad. And let me simply restart this server. npm start. Oops, still crashing. Says router.use requires a middleware function. Router.use, I'm not using it anywhere. Go back to app. Oh, app.get, I believe. Yeah. No. Should be app. Should be app.use only. Routes, default routes, and default routes. Okay. Let me check. Hold on. I'm missing something for sure. Oh yeah, so the missing part I remember is this: we need to export this router. So module.exports equals to router. Okay, because the app doesn't know about this router, and that's why it was crashing. Now it's fine. Now it's working. See, so refresh, it works perfect. But if you see the syntax here, this will start getting very congested after a few lines of code. So what I want to further divide this portion into a separate module. Okay, so what I will do, I'll go here under controllers, I'll create a new JavaScript file, name it as default controller. So like what we did with the configuration, we'll uh, export an object here with few functions. Okay, so the first one is index. So this will have my index route here. Gonna cut it from here, paste it there. Okay, okay, looks good. And we have to use this default controller from our default controller file. So this file will be in controllers, default controller. Now we can simply reference this as default controller dot index. Okay, like that. Okay, now if we go back, refresh the page, should be good. So this is much cleaner, and this get will be route. Okay, so we'll remove this from here, and any get request, this route to this should go to my default controller dot index. Okay, so Let's have a quick recap. What we did, we created a router object and we are using the route function here. Okay, and with this route function, what we can do, we can specify a path and then we can chain multiple uh, HTTP protocols like get, post, and so on. So for the get request, it will look for the default controller. In the default controller, to look for the index method, uh, which is this one. And if I go back to the browser, refresh, this will still work. Okay, but this makes our life easy, a lot easy. Okay, and for example, if I want to chain post, I can post a method, I can do that. Okay, like this. So you'll have to have the semicolon in the end of the last uh, statement that you make. So this is the post, but right now we don't have any post endpoint, so we'll not create that as of now. Similarly, I'll also create a new model here to work with. That will be our post model. Okay, so we'll be creating posts. So I'll create a file name post model. You can name it anything you want, but this is uh, what suits to this program. And the first will be to import mongoose, because the model will act as a blueprint, okay, for our database as well as for the post. So this will be defined in this file in the schema. So that schema is present inside mongoose. So I have to first import mongoose module, and then I'll create a variable called schema that will be getting its properties from this mongoose.schema object. And now I can define my post schema, and will be a new object, new schema. Okay, I'll put a semicolon here, and this will inside these curly braces I'll define what all properties I require for my posts. So the very first will be the title property. This will be of type string, and I want this to be required, of course. So this is for the validation part in the server end, and it will also have status. It will be either public or private, or let's say draft. So the type will be again string, and I can specify a default value in case if the user doesn't choose one, let's say to be public. Okay, also there will be a description field. Okay, it will have the body of the post. So it will be type of string again, required true, and as if now I don't want anything else, we can also choose a date property maybe to store the date of the post. So type is date, and default will be date dot now. Okay, so whenever the post gets created, it will uh, stamp that date. Okay, that as a creation date. So we'll name it as creation date. Okay, perfect. So that's about it. In the next video, we will be working on the admin pages, admin routes, and we'll see how we can create a post using this post model. So till then, stay tuned, and please leave your comments in the comment section below. You can download the files from my Git repository, and please don't forget to subscribe in case you haven't yet. So till then, take care and bye bye.